You know, for centuries, global power has pretty much boiled down to one thing: controlling the world's money. From the Dutch guilder to the British pound, and now the US dollar, the nation that prints the world's reserve currency holds an incredible amount of power. But what if, just what if, a new technology could break that cycle? For good. We're going to dive in and explore whether a decentralized digital currency could actually change the fundamental way empires rise and fall.
To really get what's at stake here, we've got to look at a pattern that the famous financier Ray Dalio calls the Big Cycle. What he's saying is, all this crazy change we're seeing today, it's not new, not at all. It's actually just an echo of massive power shifts that have happened over and over again throughout history.
All right, so first up, let's talk about the established theory. It's this surprisingly predictable cycle, the way empires and their money rise and then inevitably fall. And if you look back, history lays out a pretty clear roadmap, right? Back in the 1600s, the Dutch were on top, so the guilder was the world's go-to currency. Then, the British Empire took over, and suddenly everyone was using the pound. And, well, since World War II, it's been the US dollar's world, and we're just living in it. You see the pattern here? One empire fades, another one steps up, and their money becomes the new global standard.
So Dalio's framework actually breaks this whole cycle down into a few key stages. It all starts when a new superpower brings peace and prosperity. But, good times often lead to overborrowing, which creates this massive debt bubble. And when that bubble finally pops, and it always does, what's the first thing they do? They print more money. This, of course, devalues the currency, stirs up conflict both at home and abroad, and boom, you get a total shakeup of who's in charge. And then the cycle just starts all over again.
And let me tell you, having the world's reserve currency, it is way more than just a fancy title. It gives a country this thing called an exorbitant privilege. And that's exactly what it sounds like. A huge, you could even say unfair, economic leg up on everyone else.
And the sheer scale of this privilege is just staggering. Some people estimate that the US gets a benefit of around $100 billion a year just from the dollar being the world's reserve. Think about it. Because the whole world needs dollars for trade and savings, the US can borrow money way cheaper than anybody else. This lets them run up massive deficits. It's a superpower that literally no other country on the planet has.
Okay, so this brings us right to the heart of the whole thing. We've seen this cycle play out time and again, always driven by one powerful nation's interests. But what if? What if, for the very first time in human history, there was an asset that could be the world's reserve, but it was designed to exist completely outside of any single country's control?
Enter the non-sovereign challenger. This thing is the total opposite of a state-controlled currency. It's built from the ground up to be decentralized and digital.
And I mean, just look at this comparison. It really shows you how fundamentally different we're talking. The US dollar, well, it's issued by the Federal Reserve, and they can print as much as they want. It's unlimited. Bitcoin, on the other hand, is run by a decentralized network, and its supply is capped, hard capped at 21 million. No more can ever be created. They are, in every single way, philosophical opposites. So, these core features are really the foundation of the whole argument for it being a neutral global asset, right? Its supply is fixed, so no central bank can just print more and devalue your savings. It's global. Anyone with internet can access it. No borders. And maybe most important, because no single government controls it, it can't be weaponized for a trade advantage. And nobody gets that exorbitant privilege we talked about. It's designed to be fair.
Okay, so let's get into the geopolitics of this digital gold. How does this techie idea actually change things in the real world?
This quote, man, it really gets to the core of the conflict here. See, Bitcoin isn't just another option. It's a direct challenge to the entire power structure that central banks rely on. For them to adopt it would be like willingly giving up their single most powerful tool for controlling the economy. Why would they ever do that?
And this is the ultimate promise, right? The big idea. A truly neutral money for the world could create a much more level playing field. Imagine, no country could just print money to fund its wars. No country could weaponize the financial system with sanctions. It would completely change the rules of how international power works.
But okay, a revolutionary idea on paper is one thing. Making it work in the real world, that's a whole different ballgame. Let's talk about the very real roadblocks that are standing in the way.
Okay, hurdle number one, and it's a big one: volatility. The price swings are just wild. A reserve asset, by definition, has to be a stable place to park your wealth. No central bank on Earth is going to risk its entire nation's reserves on something that can drop 20% in a single day. Right now, it acts a lot more like a risky tech stock than a stable currency.
And just to put this into perspective, look at it compared to gold. Gold is the classic store of wealth, right? Its volatility is usually somewhere between 10 and 20% a year. Bitcoin, it's often hitting 50, even 80% or more. I mean, if your job is to protect your country's money, that kind of risk is it's a complete non-starter. At least for now.
All right, but let's just pretend you could magically fix the volatility. You'd still run smack into another huge wall: speed. Or really, the lack of it. For something to be the backbone of global trade, it has to be lightning fast. The main Bitcoin network, well, it can only handle about 7 transactions per second, total.
7. Now compare that to something like Visa. They're processing something like 1,700 transactions in that same second. So yeah, you can see the scale of the problem here. The base network is just way, way too slow for a global economy.
Now, to be fair, people are working on this. There are solutions being built, like the Lightning Network. The easiest way to think about it is like an express lane built on top of the main Bitcoin highway. It takes a bunch of small transactions, bundles them up, and processes them super fast. We're talking potentially millions per second. But, and this is a big but, that technology is still pretty new. It's definitely not ready for prime time on a global scale.
And look, beyond just the speed and volatility, big thinkers like Dalio point to a bunch of other risks. For one, every single transaction is public on the blockchain. That's a huge privacy concern for governments. Then you have these future tech threats, like quantum computing, that could potentially break the whole system. And maybe the biggest one of all, nobody knows what the rules are. The government and regulatory side of things is still basically the Wild West.
So all of this leaves us at this incredible crossroads, doesn't it? On one hand, you've got this centuries-old, totally predictable cycle of empires rising and falling, and it's always tied to their money. And on the other hand, you have this brand new technology that offers a way to break that cycle, but it comes with all these huge practical challenges. The really big question is, which one wins out? The old historical cycle or the new technology? The future of the global financial order could very well depend on the answer.